So please join me in welcoming Samir Ljuma, cinematographer of Honeyland. Richard Ladkani, he's the filmmaker of Sea of Shadows. And Feras Fayyad, filmmaker of The Cave. And again, they'll be in conversation with Nathan Kensinger, who you just heard from before, an artist and curator. So I do want to also acknowledge that this panel is co-presented by National Geographic documentary film.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here today, too, for the panel and to the audience as well. So today's panel is in the cinematography thread, Imagery as Character. And the framing question for this panel is looking at it says, the visual approach to a film can be as vital as the characters. How do the cinematographers capture a location or nature or other visual elements? This conversation will explore how much cinematography can bring to storytelling. But to begin with, we have some clips to share so that you're familiar with the three filmmakers' work. The three films that we're going to be talking about are all very, very different, very challenging shoots, so we'll have a lot of great conversations about some of those challenging locations. But Sea of Shadows, which feels kind of like an international crime film mixed with a nature film in a sense. Honeyland, which is more of an intimate and rural portrait. And The Cave, which was filmed underground in a very challenging location in a siege. So let's just move down the road and have you introduce yourself and your film, and then the clip that you're going to show as well.
Yeah. My name is Feras Fayyad. I'm a Syrian Kurd. I directed Last Man in Aleppo, and now I'm bringing The Cave. We're gonna see one of the hardest scene to capture, which is Dr. Amani Balour, the main subject of the film. She been elected 2 times to be a manager for hospital, and she was the first woman in the history of Syria to manage a hospital. We discovered that through the process of shooting of the movie, and the society around here was so super conservative. They can't accept a woman in work positions, in leading positions. So she was having this challenging and threat for the death, and threat for because her gender. And there's a man. He have one of the victims. He have like his child was sick, and there's no medicine because the city is sieged. So he came angry and he surprised Dr. Amani. She's a manager. He was shocked in this way. We're gonna see this. How was this confirmation? It was hard to capture this because he was really upset and angry. We didn't know how we can deal with putting the camera, how we can capture his face and reaction of Dr. Amani. Yeah.
Okay, Sea of Shadows, yes. I'm very captivated by this moment. It was very hard, for sure. But you will talk about this a bit later, yeah? Okay, great. Sea of Shadows. Well, it's a very dangerous film to have made, and for the team, I mean, just for you who haven't seen it, maybe I explain for just 30 seconds. It's about crime syndicates in Mexico, the Sinaloa drug cartel and the Chinese mafia, who are conspiring to attack an ocean system called the Sea of Cortez for money and greed to make millions of dollars. So it's about extinction. It's about an attack on our planet, an attack on nature, and it's about the heroes, the frontline heroes who are my heroes, who are fighting these people for the planet, and to kind of, you know, in some way save this place from complete annihilation. And it's a war that's taking place right now. The clip I will show shows one of the main characters, Andrea Crosta, and he has built an organization called Earth League International that is sort of the CIA for the planet. All of the people in his team are former FBI, CIA people. They have done, you know, frontline work in Somalia, anti-piracy work, but now they have all dedicated their time and, you know, all their efforts to do something good, to fight for the planet, to fight for the voiceless, which are the animals that are disappearing at an extremely fast rate. What was the most difficult part of the whole film, but also in this scene, is that these people never stop for the camera. Like, they will do their work, they're undercover, they need to be super careful, and to be embedded with them means that you're basically following Jason Bourne, but like the real Jason Bourne, into a crime thriller scenario where the bullets will be real, the cartel is real, kidnapping risk is real, and still you gotta shoot a film. So that's a very complicated thing. So what we do is we get kind of embedded with them. We try to stay out of their way. We're usually on the back seats. My soundman would be in the trunk somewhere. And we just try to be there and be as invisible as possible so we can tell the story. And still, I want this to be as cinematic as possible, like an experience. So because we're talking about cinematography, so yes, I want to be embedded, but on the other hand, also, I want to make sure this is for the big screen and this gets a very large audience in terms of a audience that maybe watches only feature films and never watches docs, because otherwise, you know, we're not going to be able to make a difference in telling the world what is going on. You know, we need a movement. So this film shows a scene in Tijuana, like an opening scene for that character, Andrea Crosta.
Tell us about Honeyland.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I just want to know how many of you in the audience saw Honeyland so far? Okay, good. Anyhow, so I will have to make a short introduction as well. My name is Samir Ljuma. I'm one of the cinematographers of Honeyland. Our movie follows the life of Hatice, that we found her in very abandoned area of our country, Macedonia. And we follow her for 3 years with everything else that happened during these 3 years. She was taking care about her mother, who was ill, and she didn't left the bed for the last 5 years since we first time arrived. And until the newcomers came, we were shooting only with Hatice, who is taking care about the wild bees. In our case, we were not facing bullets and life-threatening at some way, but our enemies we were facing working with the bees without any protection, which can be also dangerous. Yeah, I suggest that we can see one of the opening scenes, not exactly the opening scenes, but right after, when we introduce Hatice and her mother, which were our main characters in the movie. And then we can continue talking about.
Great. Thank you for sharing those clips. Richard touched on it briefly, but I'd love to just hear quickly from each of the filmmakers about how you prepared to shoot your films. Like, what type of cinematography did you prepare for? Were you working with a team of cinematographers that you were directing? Were you filming? I think in Honeyland's case, you might have filmed like 400 hours of footage, but tell us about that process in terms of the technical aspect.
Yeah, we was know that we are up inside an environment. Firstly, like suffering from the war, daily bomb, between the bomb and bomb, like there's like a few seconds, and this is an all the day. And when I'm also like there's like car bomb and there's snipers, you can't move on the surf. And this is where the most of the medical society, the doctors, they move their hospital underground because they protected from the bomb of the Russian warplane, the Syrian regime warplane that was intentionally directed the hospital. So was one of our intention how we can document this, how we can document a society that growing up underground. as well, there is like a like kind of revolution from woman who's leading that underground. And I was discovering that most of the women working in this underground in different caves in eastern Ghouta, which is outskirts of Damascus, the capital of Syria, and in Aleppo, and in Idlib, another city close to the Aleppo. And there was like around like more than 40 to 45 underground hospitals. Mostly in outskirts of Damascus was like the whole city is moved underground because they're suffering from the siege for more than 6 years, which is described from the UN, the longest run siege in the modern history. We have a female subject who's dealing in different way from the male. They are more smooth to move. Their reactions like more calm. And we are small, like tight space that create like a kind of reaction to our camera that make our camera more settle, more like easy. That because our subject is moving easy, reacting easy, and try like to create that. But also I have a cinematographer who never worked with a female. They never face this way. They was like feeling not comfortable when they was filming a woman's, and then they moved the camera to the male. And we have this conversation all the time and about the respect and disrespect. And I told them like moving the camera is disrespect things because you are trying to ignore and hide this woman from showing her story and her what she can do, what she's doing, what she's suffering from. And I wanna focus on her face all the time. I wanna follow this woman. I was filming with many different females in different locations, and not easy to follow because when the camera go out of the underground, you are facing completely a conservative society could kill you, could like follow you, like seeing you like you are doing something unnatural for their view. So was one of this is challenging alongside with the challenging of like the bomb could be killed in any ways or could be kidnapped in any ways. We managed like to keep filming in the long term. Dr. Amani gave us like the full access to even to the intimate moments, and especially this moment you can see. We facing like those men who was all the time like throwing words to the woman who was working there. Why you are here? Why you working there? We don't want to see you. We don't want to see everything happening because of you. So they're blaming the hospital bomb because Dr. Amani, she's leading the hospital, and they say like you should not be there. You should go to the home and stay with your husband and getting children. And Dr. Amani was like one of this subject confirming the society and try like to change this, and she increased the number of the women in that. In this scene, actually, when the man entering, we was like we was trying to document like Dr. Amani what she trying to do in counting the number of the people who was being injured in the hospital, and then this man come and I was like we was having like this conversation how we can if something happening, because we are all the time want to capture a moment about those people who is attacking directly Dr. Amani. So when he entered, say the first word like that, he shocked first of all see us filming Dr. Amani, how we are there like to put the camera on a woman. So secondly, he shocked that she as a manager in the hospital and he's scared what he can do, what normally he don't want to talk, and we start like to have a conversation on off camera with him. If you have a point, tell the point, otherwise we're gonna tell the point of Dr. Amani. So he don't wanna let her to talk. I don't wanna he don't wanna like let her like to explain her point of view. And one of this is challenging how we capture his behavior on the camera and trying to hide ourselves in visible way from our conversation with him. Because also we are scary that he jump and beat Dr. Amani and in a way. So we have to protect her also, like the camera and her shoulder, next to her shoulder, like if something happening, we can jump in front and protect her from that behavior. So it was like the camera was kind of protecting way, and as well with the time our camera managed to build like kind of a respect inside the society for the woman. They will start like to look and say this is dangerous. We don't wanna like say so. Start to look to the Amani in a way like, wow, she's important. We can't do anything. She's the most important things here. We have to do something with our behavior. They start to watch themselves in the way if they've been capturing in this way. So that was the camera act of the camera was building kind of change into society, not just a camera filming as well. It's building a change in the current time, in the moment that filming.
There's so many fascinating things to discuss there, yeah. Moving to Sea of Shadows, which is a very different look, in a sense, a very different looking film. It's not filmed in a very tight situation. You're using drones, you're capturing wide landscapes, you're filming on the ocean. Tell us a little about how you decided to capture that. I mean, how did you set forth in capturing this kind of much broader landscape?
Well, when I fly to a location to shoot a film there, then I arrive with 23 boxes of like equipment. And the basic idea is that because we're in such a difficult environment, it means that I'm gonna need the right tool at the right time to capture the story, and I want that tool to be there and to be available. And sometimes that is a little GoPro or a little pocket camera, or maybe it's just a hidden button camera. Sometimes it's a drone or a big shoulder camera, and other times it's gonna be a night vision or a thermal imagery camera. And I made all that experience with my previous film, The Ivory Game, which is on Netflix about the extinction of elephants, which is very similar in style and scope. And we filmed that one for 14 months in 8 countries, and it was also following investigation and undercover agents and so forth. And I understood, if you don't have the right tool in the moment to choose from, you will not be able to tell the story. And because the environment is so extreme, and also the restrictions of not interfering, not getting in the way, never slowing them down, that is their mandate. Like, I remember characters telling me, if you ever slow me down, filming is over, we're done. And then, so you fear, right? So that's why I bring this big toolkit, because I just want to make sure we can capture the story. And yes, the team is, it could be very small, it could be just by myself sometimes, and sometimes we're 6, 7, 8 people. I usually try to have a bigger team. Every scene I try to shoot with 2 cameras because of this restriction of never repeat. Like, for example, you saw the scene in Tijuana. We had 2 cameras, and the second camera was in a second car following us or going ahead of location, and they would be across the street and shoot long lens, because again, we cannot show that we're actually filming them, because then it would very quickly get maybe dangerous. We're putting attention on them, so we try to be away or we're in the back seat. But when we get a chance, for example, the second car we rented looks exactly like his car. It was the same white van. So the cool thing was, once they were on the mission and we weren't able to be there, we could use the van to do a drone shot, because that would help us tell the story. Like, once you're in the story, you can't do it, but then on the way back, we're like, okay, let's get a cover shot so we understand, where are we? What is going on? And also we had the very challenging story, which is not in the clip. It's to film the saving of this smallest whale on Earth, and there's less than 15 of them exist. They're called vaquitas, and they have never been filmed before, ever. So we were the first film crew to film that animal on the planet. And the footage we have is the only footage that exists of that animal. And it will probably remain the only footage, because now there's so few left and they're so difficult to get. So the thing was, again, all this finding these animals and retrieving them, finding them and putting them into sanctuary. That was the big mission. That took place on, they had 15 different ships. There was the catch boats, there were the science boats, there were the big eyes boats with big binoculars. But we were only 2 cameramen. So if boat number 13 engages and actually is able to catch it, and we're on boat 9 and 2, we will not film it. It will not be there. So the drone was incredibly important to have it as eyes in the sky, kind of, to understand which ship is engaging where. Of course, we have walkies, but it was every morning it was a gamble. Okay, which boat are we gonna be on? But also they were restricting us from the front lines because they were like, you will get in our way, and if you're in our way, either we push you in the water, or will be the last day you're out with us, and then that's the end of that. So there's so much restriction that technology can help you to overcome it. So for example, they agreed that every morning at 4 a.m. before they even start, we were allowed to rig boats with GoPros. So in case that boat gets the vaquita, at least we have a GoPro footage of that. But the problem is batteries run out after like 90 minutes. So we had to train one of the guys to actually activate the GoPro when it was likely that maybe they would catch one. So it was a gamble, it was crazy. So for us to then have been on the right, I was finally on the right boat. And when it happened, I was there, but I was by myself. So I had batteries in the back, and it was crazy. And I was afraid to be pushed in the water many times because I just was in the way sometimes, and it was very hard to do it. But we had the drone in the air, so it comes down to chance. But then we had the drone in the air, we filmed it from the sky, I was on the right boat, and we had the GoPro footage, and all came together. But it was a huge effort, pre-production-wise, to kind of make sure we get it there. And yeah, so that's how it comes together, and it's very, very complicated. But yeah, I could talk for it forever, but let's move on.
Yeah, Honeyland. What was the approach with
Preparation.
Honeyland? Well, also the filming process went on for 3 years. But how did you take on that challenge?
I mean, we were 2 cinematographers, and everybody asking why 2 cinematographers when you don't have a subject like which is necessary. We started because already before we worked on another documentary, the same crew, because we were limited of time and the product that we needed to deliver was like not possible to shoot everything if there was only one cinematographer or one director. So that's the 2 directors and 2 cinematographers. But in Honeyland, we only had 3 months to deliver this video, which will illustrate some of the nature conservation activity of one organization that funded Farmachem. And that's why and how we started. The footage that we shot and the idea, I mean, the concept was completely different. We thought, okay, we have to shoot the activities. When we found Atije, our main character, we were concentrated to shoot the way how she is dealing with the bees. But then 3 months was not enough because the cycle of beekeeping requires more time. Luckily, we got more funding and more time, and then the story developed a different way. And basically all the footage from before, because we were really concentrated this to be, the image should be, like a production value. So we were using gimbals, drones, everything that the TV will like, and the people who ordered. But later on, because we got very intimate within the relations between Atije and her mother. Then also when the other family came, we completely forgot about drone and stabilized, gimbals. So that's how we continue working. Regarding the style, we were quite limited. We didn't have 23 boxes of equipment. We were very limited. We shot with DSLRs, with something that we had available, and because of the region with this village that we were shooting, there was no electricity, no running water, so we were limited of every time when we go there, we could spend 2 to 4 days maximum. Depends of the intensity of the events which will occur. So if we use all the batteries, we don't have more. I know, when I mentioned this, people who are working in this field, they're like, oh, you could buy batteries. But that was not the case with us. We were discussing, for example, when we knew that we have something valuable, we were like, oh my God, our cameras can shoot only HD. Like maybe we should invest and buy at least Atomos external recorder, which will kind of give us more, more material to work on it in post. But then we decided to buy second-hand lens, which was more necessary, and we invested in another camera which has possibility to shoot 4K, which was again DSLR Nikon 5D. So the conditions which we had, we tried to use it as much as possible and to film it. And I'm glad now that we didn't have electricity, because if we had, we will probably be tempted to use some additional lighting, because we were really, really on the edge with what our equipment could give you in these low light conditions, using just oil lamps and candles. And sometimes you will see in the movie that there are 2 candles. Usually Atije will not use 2 candles. She needs only 1. But like we really needed 1 more or 2 more. Otherwise, you won't see the movie. It will be audio drama, radio drama. So I mean, I'm glad that we were in this kind of conditions, and we all, 4 of us, we believed in it, and we spent this 100 days of shooting. The only thing that we really knew from the beginning was that we don't want to interfere into the lives of our subjects. And the intimacy that we gained, I think, is also because none of us was speaking the language of our protagonists, so we don't speak Turkish. So basically, we were there and we were rely on emotions or gestures. So you can guess probably there is something which is very emotional. So you can get closer, or make a close-up shot, or that was mostly from the intuition. And for the landscape shots, that was much easier, because the first 3 months were enough period to spend there to make a research, to know exactly what she's doing. So she was showing us the beehive, so we can choose which beehive we can visit next season again, so we can be able to shoot on the right time when the light is good. But the footage of the conflicts with the other family came, you cannot predict, you cannot say, okay, let's work with the cows on the sunset. No, this doesn't work. So you can have to shoot at the moments when the actual thing is happening. Yeah, maybe I should leave to the others a bit.
No, that's
so,
fascinating. That
so
leads to a question I have for the others as well. Just the idea of having to evolve the cinematography through the course of the film. Like, did you start your film with kind of a visual idea, knowing it's going to look this way? These are some shots that I definitely know I'm going to get, or did it have to evolve, based on the circumstances as things changed around you? Yeah.
In our case, also we have the same things with Honeyland. Actually, we don't have electricity at all. No electricity. We have like generator that feeding the city, and we have a small cameras which is 5D Mark II and 60D. We have to use the best quality of this to capture that. We have not too much batteries. We have like every camera have 2 batteries. We have to be ready for that. We're dealing with crimes, war crimes in front of us. We have dealing with a conservative society. we have like the mobile phone to record sound sometimes, and we have the mobile phone to give lighting in this is underground, you know, like in a way. If somebody like didn't see the film, you should see it, like to see what's kind of being underground with limited resources for everything. Actually, I have a visual idea about what I want to do. I was all the time in love with the painting from my childhood. I love this. I grew up in the environment like Honeyland. The same things. We have these lights, candles. We don't have limit in Syria, and we don't have limited resources. So it was like, it's like the shadow bigger than our bodies and all of the. But like I wanna like to find this as visual could help me with that. But also like we have the current situations that happening in front of us, and we have that force us like to deal with that and to deal with the situations with limited resources. If the camera broken, we can't do anything. If the sound disappear, we can't do anything. We have a lot of time, like you hard to hear the sound because the sound of the generator bigger than that. We don't have the filters to filtering the sound, so we have like sometimes to ask to keep recording sound itself in different way, like to capture, because we know that what we do is like capturing is documented the crimes against the humanity. This is what we are up to, and so we kept recording sound of the bomb, the sound of the warplanes, the different sound of the negotiation between the pilot who's deciding about bombing the hospital, bombing the place, the radios, recording. As well, we was like saying that Dr. Amani moving smoothly help us in this tight location to build like the very powerful visuals. But also we want the people to understand what they're seeing in front of their eyes. We don't want to like bring another war movies, people seeing shaky camera, running around. They don't understand if this is real or this is made up, and this is way. So we want them like to confirm themselves, confirm them, and put them in front of a position of seeing and witnessing and testimony on that, and that was the intention in that. I was in love with George Latour, the painter, which is how he's using the candle when moving to the naked of masculinity in that, and I was feeling this brilliant idea to use it in a way of thinking about how like Dr. Amani, she managed to do this in a way, changing the perspective, shifting the perspective of the gender in that, and we was talking about this together. The cinematographer they don't have experience with the cinema verite, and I wanted to shoot with the cinema verite, no voiceover, no interviews, just observing camera. We create a style called the boxer style. So the boxer, how he look to his the opposite or his enemy, let's say, or his goal. He looked like, first of all, like wide shot, and then he move to the side, the first angle more closer, and then the third angle more closer. And that's the way how we move in the conversation to have more angle and more opportunities for the editing and for the capturing the style. But also we all the time aware what we did recorded. It's a testimony on history, testimony on social justice, testimony on war crimes, and that was mostly all the time we are feeling that whatever the artistic perspective, we are here for a missions, and this is mission that we use. This is footage. If it didn't end in a film, we will use it for like in Hatay, for like in Lahai, for like a testimony on crime against the humanity. Yeah.
Richard,
What was the question?
The question was the visual style. Did you have a strong visual idea about like shots you knew that you were going to get beforehand, or did you have to evolve in the field and have the cinematography evolve as you filmed?
No, I think I had the style of the film pretty much in mind, because I was very much referencing my previous film, The Ivory Game, as a style. And when we went in to shoot this film, it was sort of, for me, it was seen as a follow-up to the previous ones, and the previous one was successful, so we went with it again. But the basic idea is that I want that the film speaks a beautiful language while at the same time tells a powerful story, and that is even more important because it deals with crimes against nature and the extinction of species, and people are very often afraid of going down that vortex because it can get very dark and people could be very depressed, and so they're afraid. So what I'm trying to do is, from the beginning, I'm gonna try to make it as visually beautiful as possible and as cinematic as possible, because I want people to be pleased at least with the visuals. And this is a very, very beautiful place. And at the same time, we're dealing with a very dark and gruesome story. They're slaughtering all these, fish in the ocean. They're killing everything, dolphins, whales, sharks, just to get to this one fish. And then from that fish, they only cut out the swim bladder. And the rest is left to rot at sea and then sent to China, where it makes $100,000 a piece. So one swim bladder sells for $100,000, and that's why it's called the cocaine of the sea. And so the story is dark, and I wanted to lift it up and try to bring it, a very good and nice look for the audience to enjoy. But also, what may be interesting for this audience is that I'm a rare species in the way that I direct and I also shoot. So I do both, and that is quite rare. And it's rare because it's not often seen as favorable, which I fully understand. It's actually very hard when you do when you need to be technically correct, aperture and so forth. But at the same time, you're directing subjects. But I've always done that because I started as a photographer, and through all my life, I wanted to film. I love image, but I also love storytelling. So I tried. Early on, people said, you should choose. You should not try to do both. You will fail. And yet, here I am. So it can work, but there is also a big advantage to that, which is that I can get really close. You talked about intimacy. I can get really close with my subjects because off camera, I really try to be, someone that they trust and someone that they like as a friend as well. So we become friends, if possible. I want to be friends with all my subjects because we spend a lot of time together. We go through very dangerous moments together. But the advantage then is, okay, let's be friends, but don't mind the camera on my shoulder, so we can, there is this thing when they connect to you, and you can also have a camera on your shoulder and they stop minding that. Then it becomes very interesting because you will get very intimate, personal storytelling, and you can film from the gut. You can follow the instinct of the moment, which is quite powerful when something happens to the right and the subject reacts to it. You can make that decision in that 1/100th of a second of am I gonna pan over or am I gonna stay on the face and just watch the eyes? How does that work? But then again, I also know I have a second cameraman, so he could do that. And we have been working together for 15 years. So we're he actually used to be my assistant until 2003. So he trained with me, he learned what I do, and then he became his own self. So we work together as if we were one. So he understands I'm gonna stay on the face, but he better check what's there. So it's an interesting way of approaching film and story, and it works quite well. And I think that's why the style is also, when you see the film, you will see it's somewhat different. It's very embedded, very close, but yet I try to make it also as grand as I can, just because I know the audience needs that somehow.
I guess looking at the finished film, and I encourage everyone in the audience, if you haven't seen the films, please see all 3 films. They're all amazing and unique. But looking at the finished film, did it stay true? This is a question for all the panelists, but we can start with Honeyland. Did the film stay true to the cinematography, the vision that you had in shooting? Do you think the final film, in the editing room, is that where let's say the imagery as character was built, or how did you reconcile the cinematography in the editing room? With Honeyland, you're dealing with kind of this clash between, in some cases, the urban and the rural, the newcomers and the traditional way of life. How did that come together in the final film?
I mean, I know we had even much better scenes and footage. From my perspective, I'm not a director, but I'm very happy with the final result because it touches the subject that we were really aware we want to show, even in the not beginning, but when we really realized that we are following these two stories, the neighbors with the 7 kids and Hatice and her mother. So, I mean, I will say, again, this intimacy that we managed then, I understand that the image becomes character only when you secure the intimacy which is necessary to shoot, and the trust that we had from both sides with us. But regarding your question, yeah, I'm satisfied. There is not something that is manipulated. I know that chronologically there are some changes of the events which needs to illustrate certain situation. Like, I don't want to make spoilers for those who didn't saw. I will skip that. But I will say maybe we should show the second clip, which I want to say something about that situation that we had, which will probably answer your question as well.
That sounds good. Do we have the second clip for Honeyland?
In the beginning, we spent only with the bees and Hatice. Later on, we moved to her relationship with the mother. And the one thing that we, from the beginning, we wanted to capture was this moment that we always consider her mother as a queen bee who never leave the hut, and Hatice as her bee who is bringing all this food, who is taking care about the mother. So we will focus on that kind of moments every time when we know that Hatice is talking something. We will just get in. We will start shooting. In this particular scene, I wanted, because we don't know what they're talking about. I remember we were sitting outside having a lunch, and then Hatice came and she said, because like we were not all the time there because they need to have their private moments, which we didn't want it to film. I mean, private moments in terms of, because the mother cannot go anywhere, so. So she came and we were eating, and she asked if she can borrow these tissues, and we said yes. So we asked, what you gonna do? She said, yeah, I have to put the medicine to my mom, and can we film? Yeah. She said, yeah. So we get in, and we didn't know what she's going to do. And then I filmed from that point where I cannot see what is happening, and I only first time I noticed that the mother is nervous with, she started doing this, and I noticed, and I immediately I had a feeling that probably I will, of course, with the focus was hard in this dark with these lenses that we had, but yeah, we catch that moment, and then so when you also mentioned when you feel the moment or you know whether you will turn now to the other thing what is happening, it's always in our case was from to guess or to feel that something important is happening that we have to capture. Otherwise, you will stay on them. And, yeah, that's.
Thank you. Yeah. Richard, following up on that question I asked as well, how in the editing room did the film come together in terms of your visual strategy? I mean, you had to mix drones with very intimate close-ups with, you know, like you said, pocket cams, night cams, all these different styles, and then create this cohesive whole. Like, how did you create that visual style in the very end?
Well, my editors are here.
Oh,
You should ask them. They're here. Just say hi. Verena and Georg. Well, it was really, yeah, we created the look and feel, and it took a lot of effort, especially because we had so much footage. You have 2 cameras, and you know you need to get the feeling right and be as intimate as possible. But of course, when you have a big advantage when you're the director, but and also cinematographer. You're both. You can make sure, yes, you get there. If you have a vision early on, then you will stick to it, and you will make sure that that vision is there. And yeah, I sort of hoped the film would end up like it is, but you know, I couldn't do it without the amazing team that works behind it. Also, our producers from Terramata, you know, were super helpful in giving notes. But we also brought in, for the first time, external directors who became executive producers, and we shared it with them at the late stage of the cut, you know, and asked. So I think that's very, very important to ask other people's opinion and be confident about what do you take as a, okay, I will look at it and do it, and what do you will not change, you know, like that is something very tricky. And I remember in many of my previous films, I was very much afraid of having anybody outside, like, interfere, you know. But then there comes a time when you gotta be like, okay, maybe I should be more open to it and just have a, you know, show it to people and start talking about the edit. And it was actually really a great experience. Like, we showed it to people that I respect very much, who are aligned in terms of that realm of like environmental or climate related films or issue related films. And what they said was extremely helpful, and it actually helped us first shorten the film to the length where it was okay, around 100 minutes. And but I'll never forget, for example, that one scene that I loved the most. I was so proud of. It was the climax of everything, of like, you know, like I couldn't believe we had the access. You know, it was a high-speed chase involving gunships and helicopters, and we were everywhere. We were embedded with the Navy and the Marines, and we were like in the middle of a war, but we had cameras like you would never be allowed to have. And then I remember that phone call where actually it was Luis Psaihoyos who did The Cove, who said, you know, I love it and everything, but you gotta cut that scene. Like, what? I wanted to like slam down the phone and just like never talk to you again. But then again, I realized he's right. He's right, because he had a very good reason, too complicated now to explain, but he basically said if you put that scene in, everything else collapses. Because it is too strong, actually too powerful, and at a time in the film when it will diminish the rest of the film. So either you destroy the rest and keep it, or you take it out and everything else will rise. And those kinds of things, you know, it made click. I was like, it's the right thing to do, and those outside advice is super helpful in actually finishing your film in a good way. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, more or less.
I think we're actually going to open it up to the audience for audience questions, if anyone has any questions. If not, I can ask questions too. Yeah, there's one in the very back.
I was just wondering how Adijay reacted to her trip to New York.
Thank you for the question. She's very happy here. Yesterday she said like, yeah, everybody are talking about this great America, and basically it was her will as well to come here, and she was amazed yesterday. She had a really nice walk on the Times Square, and she experienced that, and she was amazed by the tall buildings and everything. And she complained about this fancy food when you mix salty and sweet. She ate it because she think, oh yeah, I should eat it, but she she didn't like that kind of combination. So we know now. Yeah, she's very happy here. And we are happy that we have her here as well.
Other questions from the audience?
Are we actually allowed to show another clip, or is it? Are we out?
I think we only have a few minutes left, so it might be. We got about 5 minutes, so that might not be possible. I had a question. Oh, sorry. I had a question actually about the cave. Did the film, in following up the question I asked the other filmmakers, did the film stay true to that vision you had of that painting that inspired you, or of the idea you had at the very beginning? Do you think that you captured that in your film?
Yeah, I did. I'm very proud about this actually, and the film actually it made normally in the editing room, as all the documentaries. We can say like we have important things to do in locations and everything, but in editing room you play the stories, you find the balance, you try like to find the connection between the different fragments, moment that you shoot, because we don't have intentions where we're gonna go the stories. We was shooting in different location, one in Eastern Ghouta, outside of Damascus, one in close to Aleppo, so it was hard to understand where we're gonna go like with that. You just have a goal, you wanna follow this. It was also hard for the editor to sit in front of the crimes against the humanity, like watching chemical attacks, watching like a direct bomb for hospitals. They was like witnessing with me what's happening right now in current times in Syria in front of them, and they have feeling of huge responsibility. One of the editor here, Bear, that I collaborate with him very early in the film. We have a lot of conversation about the style, and I've been showing him all the time. I want this feeling, and I wanna try like to keep this spiritual feeling. And we have this conversation that we have one of the powerful chemical attacks, as Richard said. We have many things like that. We said like let's keep the moment of chemical attack, the impactful moment in the films, and we have to try like to slow down all the other feeling, because people can't take it anymore. They will feel numb if they keep watching these things. We have this conversation testing in front of that, even if it was hard. Like sometimes we was editing for 1 hour because we couldn't take it more. Actually, he go to his home and next day coming like, he couldn't like me too. Like he locked the door, and I was sleeping in the editing room actually all the time. I'm a refugee because in Denmark, so it wasn't have a home. So my home is the editing room. So I like sitting on the couch, and he clicking the door on me, like saying like, "Did you sleep?" I said no. He said like, "I didn't sleep also," because like it's the footage is following our capture, like hunting us, and we have a feeling of responsibility. We was editing and feeling of responsibility. We wasn't even like caring about we should put it in a story or should not put it in a story. We have to confirm the people what's going on, how we can deal this. Like himself, he been editing a lot of films, very successful film, but he's for him like emotionally, strongly beat him in his stomach and his pain. And like, but in the end, we managed like to build a really good way story and feeling. We try to avoid all of our like artistic position. Sometimes sometimes we feel it like very superior to be artist on this moment, and this is visual and the power of a female subject fighting the society and fighting the crimes and trying to treat the society and build like a new behavior there. And that's the way. I'm proud to work with with the people that I work, and I appreciate how they risk in their lives, everything, their mental health also, because we was in the therapist all the time, yeah, to deal with this film. It was hard, but it was great. Yeah.
I think that wraps up the panel, but I want to ask the panelists actually before we finish, where can people see the films? Because I really think you should see all three films. You were saying it's going to be aired on...
It just aired last night, was our big premiere on National Geographic, so it will be available for download, I think starting on Tuesday.
Great.
But it's also on Amazon and Hulu, no, not you, Google Play. Well, you can find it online, but also if you want to see it here at the festival, it's on Tuesday 9 p.m. and I really recommend you see it in
on
the
the
cinema.
big screen, yeah.
Big screen. We made it for the big screen, and I'll be here for a Q&A as well, so please come and see it Tuesday 9 p.m. here in this theater.
And Honeyland, where's...
Yeah, we are having screening today at 1:45, I
That's like
suppose,
now.
here.
Yeah.
Here in
What time?
some of the theaters. But if you don't manage to see, it's on Amazon and Apple TV, so you can order. For the US, it's much easier. You can order DVD.
I think the big
Yeah.
screen for that as well.
A
is seeing it
big
on the
screen, yeah. I mean, I will appreciate if you manage to get it to the big screen, yeah. So.
Yeah, and the cave.
Will be screened Tuesday also. I don't know the time, but you can check it out, and it's coming in 2020, in the middle of 2020, to the will be broadcast around the world with the National Geographic TV. But we made it. We make this film for cinema. We made this.
Yeah.
We hardly work in every single to see the details inside that. And as I said, I'm very honored to be next to Richard, next to the cinematographer of Honeyland, because they made great films and very inspiring. And hearing these stories, learn so much from them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
well,
you.
the cave is
Yeah,
amazing
same.
too. It's really...
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And also, if you have questions for the filmmakers, I'm sure they'll be here for a little bit before they might have to go to a screening. But if you have follow-up questions, definitely please come and chat with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.